now we are back down in the bilge. We've got the heat cranking, and we're going to go ahead and get this all fitted out. Kind of done a little dry fit. This is the piece that we made that we had everything mounted to. Now, obviously, we're mounting it. We don't want to have everything on here. So, what we do, we come in, we test fit it, make sure it's going to look all nice. And it's hitting all those angles just right, just like we templated. So now what I can do is I can go ahead, get this screwed in on one spot here, and then I'll pull it off and we'll measure where we want the rest of them so it all looks all nice and pretty here. So, without further ado, let's get into that. Now we're going to do all of this drilling, guys, kind of like we did in the last season. We're working with the starboard. We want to over drill. When we're drilling into this, we don't want our screw to actually bite into this. We want it to actually pass through. We want it to bite into the substrate, the wood right here. That's the most important part for it to grab into, so we don't want it to be pulling against itself when we're going through that first piece. So let's go ahead and find a nice little spot for this, and go ahead and we're going to drill it. And then what we want to do also is counterboard. So what we don't want are these screw heads sticking out. We want to go ahead and make sure that they are sitting flush. That's why we went ahead with these counter, I don't know if you can see that in the video or not, right there, we went with that kind, so we can go ahead and get those flat pan heads in there, sitting there looking all pretty. The downside is starboard really doesn't like to be counterboard out too much. So we're going to kind of work that around a little bit, make sure that looks good. Set the screw in there, make sure it looks good. Looks like we're in pretty good shape. Just going to have to round that out just a little bit more. And there we go, we got a nice fit. Go ahead, change our drill bit out to our smaller size here, because now we're going to be going into the wood. We want to make sure we're getting a nice fit here, and everything's going to be nice and snug. Ideally, this would also be the time that you have a helper, but here we are. Go. Put that guy in there. Drop this guy right into here. You can go ahead and line this back up. Impact. Now we're not going to go fully sending it, but at least now we know what this is going to look like. I can put one more screw to hold it in place down here, and we also know where our other parts have landed, so we can make sure we're not getting screws that are going to be interfering with that as well. So now we're just going to go ahead and figure out where we want that next one to land, and I'm thinking it's probably going to be right in here somewhere, but let's take a look and see what looks the best. Actually, you know what, guys? We're gonna go right here. That way I can measure all the rest of this out and make it look all pretty. So let's do that. Alright, so we've got those two in there. Obviously I haven't countersunk that one, but now what I can do is I can start taking some measurements to make this thing look all pretty, but I don't need to overkill it, obviously. So we end up here, we've got, looks like 70 centimeters from top to bottom down there. And then we know also that, take a piece of tape, we know right along here, guys, I've got a secondary pieces of screws. So I want to make sure my screws don't land where those other screws already are. So we kind of come along there, and I know that those are at 2 inches, 9 inches, and 19 inches, or 18 and a half actually. Right along there. So I want to make sure I don't put any screws there. But outside of that, I think it's kind of a free range. So we can go ahead, we'll drop another one, we'll just draw a straight line down, make sure these things all line up and look all nice. And in order to do that, I'm just going to use tape because it's way easier to do, and it has a nice straight edge on it. Of course, the tape doesn't want to play nice, but that's a whole other story. And we're not going to use tape because this tape is junk. I can't stress this enough. Don't buy cheap tape, cheap stuff, guys. It ends up wasting your time and frustrating you. So instead, I'm just gonna take a little Sharpie and drop the tape measure down and make some marks and go from there. So that is where that guy is landing. Keeping that in line that we do on the center line right there. Make sure we get that on the center line actually. So there we go, that's hanging straight down, that's on center line. I'm just gonna do a couple little quick little tick marks here, guys. Four that way should be good. And then we're just going to do the same this way. And the same thing right there. That landed at the 20. So we'll put this one at 40. And then we'll have to do one down there and one down there. And we'll keep it all nice and clean. All right, with that all marked out, we can go ahead and pop these screws out, and then we can go ahead and drill our holes right here on this. And then should be able to do is copy this and do the same for the other side so the screws all match and look all uniform. Again, is this overkill? Yeah, it's overkill. Does it look nice though? Yeah, it looks really nice. So, it's worth doing. Do it right. As the old shop teacher used to say, right? So, let's get after it. Alright, so now that we have everything all drilled out, and I've gone ahead and I've actually matched it on the other side as well. Still got to counterbore that, but this is all drilled out in counterbored. So now what we can do is go ahead and get this all in place. I still have to drill all my holes here, but we can at least get this thing up in place and make sure all of our counterboards are deep enough to cover what we need. Go ahead and line this guy back up in there. The old impact out. Same thing again, guys. I'm not driving it all the way home quite yet, but we're getting it close. Take this guy here to kind of hold this one in place a little bit. That will do that. And then we can start drilling the rest of our holes here. Obviously down here, let's start with this one. Obviously we are using all stainless hardware on this as well, because this is on a boat. We don't want to cheap out and use just regular screws as I continue to drop them here. There we go. So yes, we're using all stainless hardware on this. Go, that one sits down all nice. Now we can start driving home all the rest of these here, knowing that we've got a solid base. Always double check your screws. I have trust issues. I am fully aware of that and okay with it. Go ahead. That is sucking down really nicely, so everything's going to be easy peasy lemon squeezy. So now we'll just get these all driven in. Bammer! Just like that, now we are all ready to go. I can actually go ahead and move forward, putting all of this stuff back on. Then I'll counterbore for this one over here, get this mounted, and then there's a piece that you guys can't see in the video that'll go right there, and this is going to complete all of this, make this all nice. So let's get after it and get this stuff installed here. So that actually went really smooth here, guys, because we had templated everything. You can see we have this all set up right here. This is all screwed into place. There's that other panel that I talked about we're going to put in that goes across there, and that should also help facilitate, because we're going to put a panel that goes across and fills this in, because we are putting the 4 Group 31 batteries right there. So the next step is we're going to have to run that house feed across, down, over, around, and feed back into that. That shouldn't be too hard. That should be pretty straightforward. So we're going to go ahead, pull the wire for that, leave it a little extra long, and we'll get that all crimped up and get that in place so it's ready to receive when we go ahead and we swap the batteries over from there to over here. And then, guys, what we need to do, and I'm really not looking forward to it because it's Maine and it's cold, we need to move this raw water strainer. Actually, we got to move all the stuff that's on here. That includes this battery charger right there, the freshwater pump right there, that outlet, because we are going to do another panel that's filling all of this space right here so we can mount everything nice and neat. But that is wire reinforced hose. Wire reinforced hose because you don't want it to collapse because it's the engine intake side. So it means it's also not really flexible, and it's really, really cold. Even though I've got the heat going on in here and it's pretty warm, it's still colder, and that is not that pliable. So we're gonna go ahead. I got to do a little bit of housekeeping here. We still got some cleanup. You know, we got the we made it snow in here with all the starboard and get everything cut and everything. So we're gonna go ahead, get this all cleaned up, tidied up, and then we're gonna go ahead and start pulling that house feed across the way over there so that can be ready to go. And yeah, let's get after it, guys. Now we have the housekeeping done, and I've gone ahead and I've actually added a couple little labels onto here. I just like to, you know, I know I'm the only one working on it, but in case somebody helps me or somebody has to come in and finish this project, I always like to label everything, leave little notes, because I don't know when I'm going to get back to this. Sometimes I've got to go away for work for a week or two. It's just a good reminder and a good habit to be in. Keep everything all nice and tidy. Leave notes as you're going along. That's what we've got right there. Like this switch, I know I need to program it for the NEMA 2000, so I'm going to have to take that off again. So I also noticed as I was getting this ready, guys, is I don't have my normal screw down zip tie saddle clamps. I've got these adhesive kind ones, and I've got some weld mount ones, but those two aren't going to work real well on starboard. It's a petroleum product. Nothing really wants to stick to it. So these are just going to be placeholders that are in there temporarily for the time being, so that way we can at least run our house feed cable over. So we've got that set up. I've got a couple of those set up along the way. And again, that's just kind of holding it in place to see where it's going to fall. It is very cold still, even with the heat on in here. This wire is still not exactly the most flexible right now, but I don't want to slow down. I want to keep rolling on this. So our next steps here, guys, are we're going to go ahead and get our ends on here. We're going to have to strip this back, and we're going to put this on here, throw a little heat shrink on there, and slide those on, get those bolted in place to right here for our negative bus, and right here for our positive side. Then we're going to run it over, and then we're going to see how does that all lay and where is that going to kind of fall. So let's get after it, guys, without much else to say. Let's see what we can get into. So just like always with these crimps and everything, just kind of want to lay that against there, and we want to see how much do we need to strip back on this jacket so we can slide in there and get that proper crimp. In this case, look on here, it actually lines up with the writing on here, and I know that I got to go right to that L. And we've got a new cutting stick so that it will be nice and easy to cut this jacket off of here quickly. There we have it. Making a little bit of a mess with some wire. And now, guys, we're going to get out that other crimping tool like we talked about. Because I'm not in the shop, I don't have that nice shop tool right there. So we're just going to go with the old school here with a hydraulic press. Let's see what crimps we have in here. I think the last time I used it, I was doing some 2 gauge. And look at that. That's exactly what we have. So now I can go ahead, slide this on there, slide that guy right onto there. Now we've got a nice fit, and now I can put this guy into here, shut the valve. We're still going to get a really nice crimp with this, guys. It's just not as nice, or as quick rather, I guess, as doing it with that Milwaukee. Let's get that all lined up. Get this guy to close down a little bit. then we can kind of adjust it. Right, there we go. There it is. Just pump away until we can't anymore. There we go. That's our first one. Now we can release it. It'll open up, close it back down, and we go 90 degrees. And again, just trying to get the best that we can for this, because we want a nice, good, clean, solid connection. Back. And we loosen it up again. Just a little more. Loosen it a little more. There we go. Now, it's not quite as pretty as that Milwaukee one, but it does pass the full test. So now what we need to do is get a little heat shrink on there to make sure it is good and sealed. Unfortunately, one thing I didn't grab when I was going through all my Santa's wish list was a different color of heat shrink. Now, thankfully, we are using ABYC color codes, and we are using yellow wire for negative. I'm just debating whether I want to wait and hold off for the heat shrink. That is the right color. Or do we just say, you know what, the wire's yellow, and run with it? I haven't decided yet. But let's get this all shrink down here. This is a new tool to me, guys. This is the Milwaukee M18 heat gun. I was a little hesitant to get a cordless heat gun. You know, it is my preferred tool to use the heat gun for all of these types of things, but gotta say, pretty impressed with how it's working. Very quiet, very efficient with the battery, and don't have to worry about plugging and unplugging things and everything else. It's just right there, and it's just another one of those M18 tools to have. Works out really well. There we go. That is now done. Now, let's get after it. We'll make the other one here and be back in a second to go ahead and run these. Now that all of the crimps are made, I've gone ahead and I've started to try to route the wire. Now, as expected with that adhesive saddle clamp, you can see that one, it's kind of a tight radius bend right there. That one is already, I don't know if you'll see in the video, but that's already started to pull away. But we've got our other ones here so we can start to get that all dressed. We're gonna bring that down. Now I've got to figure out how to make that transition to go down, around, and you kind of see there's a void. This isn't really going to the stringer right there, so we can go ahead and bring that wire through. You can also see that white wire right there. That goes up, so we've got a wire chase that can then go up to our two bus bars, because we already have our positive bus bar there, and we have our negative bus bar right there, so we are in good shape for that. We can go ahead and get that all hooked up and wire run over to there. I think the hardest part is just gonna be figuring out this little transition right through here, which we're gonna do. But a quick note, guys, I do have this all crimped up, and we are all ready. I did go with the red heat shrink on here, but we know, look, it's a yellow wire. It's going to a negative bus bar. I don't think there's going to be any confusion for anybody on there. And also notice here, guys, we've got the breaker turned off right there. That's that flag down versus flag up. So we've got that down. We have this switch off, and the T-class fuse is missing. So even if I go ahead and I start connecting things up on the other side that's live, which you shouldn't do, but just in case somebody did, we have safety precautions in place to make sure we're not backfeeding or creating problems or letting the smoke out of the wire. So now for the next step, guys, let's figure out how we're going to go ahead and get this around that corner there nice and neat without the screw-in saddle clamps that'll kind of force it in place. So let's get after it and see what we can make work and go from there. All right, guys, so it is just flat out cold, and we don't have the right saddle clamps to get this all mounted and hold those things in place. So it's kind of fighting an uphill battle. So I think we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna call it a wrap on this week's episode. So that way we come back on a future episode, I'll have the right clamps, we'll have the wire run done, we'll get all that taken care of. So hopefully you guys found this informative, and if you did, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button down below. It doesn't cost you a penny, helps me out a ton. And if you got any questions, leave those down below as well. We'll be sure to get those answered for you in a future episode. And I think we're going to come back next week. We'll probably be working with the solar charge controller and the inverter, starting to get those things mounted and talking about those and just kind of showcasing those a little bit more. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe. We will see you next Saturday with a new episode. Peace.